My name is Joanna Frell. I am 31 years old, and at 5:14 in the morning, I was standing at Gate B-17 inside McGee Tyson Airport in Knoxville, Tennessee, watching my father abandon my grandmother in public. Hazel Frell stood beside me with both hands wrapped around the handle of my grandfather Earl's old leather suitcase. 11 members of my family surrounded us, checking phones and boarding passes for our 3-week Europe trip. Then the airline agent looked up and said, "I don't have a reservation under Hazel Frell." My grandmother opened the plastic boarding pass holder my father had mailed her 2 weeks earlier. Inside was a printed itinerary with hotel names and travel dates. No confirmation number. No ticket. Nothing. My father barely looked at her. "Mom, I must have forgotten to book your ticket," he said with a shrug. "Just go home. We'll FaceTime you from Rome." 11 people heard him say it. Nobody argued. Nobody offered to stay. Nobody said she had paid $30,000 for the trip. Hazel closed the empty boarding pass holder slowly and slipped it back into her purse. Her hands trembled, but her face didn't change. Then my father turned toward security with the rest of the family like nothing had happened. I looked down at my own boarding pass. Then I tore it in half. My dad spun around. "Joanna, what are you doing?" "I'm going home with Grandma." My Aunt Diane sighed. "Don't be dramatic." Brenda, my stepmother, adjusted her scarf without even looking at Hazel. "Your grandmother wouldn't enjoy Europe anyway. She can barely walk." That sentence hit harder than my father's. His cruelty felt calculated. Hers felt effortless. I picked up Earl's old suitcase. It was heavier than it should have been. Hazel had packed everything for 3 weeks. Church shoes, sweaters, her Bible, a little bag of butterscotch candy she always carried. She had truly believed she was going to Paris. Nobody followed us into the parking garage. The automatic airport doors closed behind us, and something inside me changed with them. Hazel lived alone in the same house my grandfather bought in 1981, a quiet 3-bedroom ranch outside Knoxville. She had taught 3rd grade for 34 years. She ironed napkins, sent thank you cards, wrapped gifts in newspaper because she thought wrapping paper was wasteful. She had spent 22 years quietly building a retirement account after Earl died. But lately things about her house bothered me. The porch railing sagged. The gutters drooped. The kitchen faucet dripped into a bowl overnight. Her thermostat stayed at 62 degrees even in December. Whenever I asked my father about it, he always said the same thing. "Mom's fine. She just doesn't like spending money." That first night after the airport, I slept in Hazel's guest room listening to the furnace rattle every 20 minutes while anger settled into my chest like concrete. The next morning I noticed something else. The fridge was almost empty. Generic medications lined the kitchen counter instead of the name-brand prescriptions she used to take. The mail basket near the front door was stuffed with junk catalogs, but there were no bank statements, no account summaries, no Social Security paperwork, nothing financial. That afternoon, Hazel's neighbor Loretta brought over a casserole and quietly told me something that made my stomach turn. "Your daddy comes every other Tuesday," she said softly. "He takes Hazel's mail straight from the mailbox before she even wakes up." I stared at her. "He doesn't go inside?" Loretta shook her head. 5 minutes. In and out. 7 years working in geriatric care had taught me something important. Sometimes what's missing tells you more than what's there. That night I called Hazel's bank. The woman on the phone apologized politely. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but the authorized signer on the account is Richard Frell, my father." The next morning, Hazel showed me the durable power of attorney she had signed 5 years earlier. "He said it was just in case something happened to me," she said quietly. The document gave Richard complete control over her finances, bank accounts, insurance policies, mail access, everything. "Do you know how much money you have?" I asked. She shook her head. Richard handles all that. I took pictures of every page. Then I asked the question that changed everything. Grandma, will you go to the bank with me? She hesitated for a long time before finally putting on her navy church coat and saying, "Let's go." Ville Community Bank sat near the old hardware store downtown. Hazel had banked there for over 30 years. The branch manager printed 5 years of account records. I watched my grandmother's face slowly empty as the numbers appeared. 5 years earlier, her retirement account held $212,000. Current balance, $41,600. Withdrawal after withdrawal filled the pages. $12,000 for home repairs the same year her gutters started sagging. $8,000 for medical expenses fully covered by insurance. $25,000 transferred to Diane. And finally the Europe trip. $30,000 withdrawn from Hazel's account 8 weeks earlier labeled travel fund. Over $140,000 gone. Every transaction authorized by Richard Frell. Hazel folded the printout carefully and placed it inside the same purse that still held the empty boarding pass holder. She didn't cry. She just looked at me and said quietly, "I trusted him because he is my son." That night, after she went to bed, I opened the shared family email account Richard had created years earlier on Hazel's old desktop computer. And that was when I found the email. Subject line: Trip Logistics. From Richard to Diane. Don't book Mom's ticket. Tell her we'll handle it. She won't even notice the money's gone. I read it 3 times. Then I found another email confirming 3 business class upgrades charged directly to Hazel's savings account. My father had never forgotten her ticket. He never bought one. The plan had always been to leave a 74-year-old woman standing at that airport gate while they toured Europe using her retirement savings. I copied every email onto a USB drive. The next morning, I called an elder law attorney named Marcus Webb. Marcus read the evidence in silence for nearly half an hour. The bank statements, the power of attorney, Loretta's statement, the emails. Then he looked at Hazel. "Mrs. Frell, this is textbook financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult." He filed emergency paperwork that same week. The court temporarily revoked my father's power of attorney. Hazel's accounts were frozen. Her mail access was restored. Adult Protective Services opened an investigation. And my father still had no idea. 3 days later, while sipping wine in Venice, his credit card stopped working. He called me furious. "What's going on with Mom's bank account?" I looked out Hazel's kitchen window while Loretta watered flowers next door. "I don't know, Dad. Maybe call the bank." 20 minutes later he called Hazel. She let it ring. Then he called again. And again. She never answered. 2 days later he booked an early flight home. When Richard finally walked into Hazel's house, he looked exhausted and furious. "What did you do?" he snapped the second he saw the folders spread across the dining room table. Hazel stood quietly in the hallway holding a cup of tea. "Sit down, Richard." He sat. I slid the bank statements toward him. "Grandma wants to understand where her money went." His expression changed immediately. "I don't have to explain anything. I had power of attorney." "Had," I corrected. The color drained from his face. "What do you mean had?" "The court suspended your authority pending investigation." He stood so fast the chair screeched across the linoleum. "You went to court behind my back? You stole over $140,000 from a 74-year-old woman behind hers." His eyes darted toward Hazel. "Mom, tell her to stop this. I was protecting your money." Hazel looked at him steadily. "I understand that I had $212,000 5 years ago, and now I have $41,000. For the first time in my life, my father had no answer. Marcus scheduled a formal family meeting for the week. Everyone returned from Europe. Hazel insisted it happen in her dining room. The same table where my father had announced the Europe trip months earlier. On the morning of the meeting, Hazel dressed carefully in her cream church blouse and pearl earrings. "If we are doing this," she said calmly, "I'm going to look like myself." At 9:47 a.m., Richard walked through the front door followed by Diane and Brenda. Then they saw Marcus sitting at the head of the dining table beside a binder full of evidence. Richard stopped cold. "Who is this?" Marcus stood and buttoned his jacket. "Marcus Webb. I represent your mother in the matter of financial exploitation and breach of fiduciary duty." Nobody spoke after that. Marcus walked through every withdrawal year by year. The fake medical expenses, the fake repairs, the transfer to Diane, the Europe money. Then he placed two documents side by side. Hazel's fake itinerary and the real booking confirmation. "This," Marcus said, tapping the itinerary, "was designed to make Mrs. Frell believe she had a ticket." Then he tapped the booking receipt. "These are the 3 business class upgrades purchased using her savings account." Richard's face went pale. Marcus opened the final section of the binder. "I would also like to enter into record 2 email communications." Richard immediately stiffened. Marcus read the line aloud. "Don't book Mom's ticket. She won't even notice the money's gone." The room went completely silent. Brenda covered her mouth. Diane stared at the floor. Richard looked like someone had reached inside him and removed all the air. Then he turned toward me. "You did this. You turned Mom against me." I kept my voice calm. "Grandma is right here, Dad. You just stopped seeing her." Marcus continued. "You also changed your mother's life insurance beneficiary to yourself 18 months ago, without her knowledge." That finally broke Brenda. "Can we settle this without court?" she whispered. Hazel spoke for the first time since the meeting began. "I saved that money for 22 years, she said quietly. "Every paycheck, every tax refund, every summer I skipped vacations." She looked directly at her son. "I signed that paper because I trusted you." Richard opened his mouth, but she kept going. "What you did to me at that airport, that is the moment I stopped trusting you." Then she repeated his own words back to him slowly. "I forgot your ticket. Just go home." Her eyes never left his. "You didn't forget anything. You just thought I wouldn't matter enough for anyone to stay." The silence after that felt enormous. Then Hazel looked at me. "But someone stayed." Richard left without another word. 2 months later, the court permanently revoked his power of attorney. He was ordered to repay the full $140,000 through a structured settlement. A lien was placed against his assets. Adult Protective Services substantiated the exploitation claim under Tennessee law. Hazel refused to pursue criminal charges. "I want accountability," she told Marcus, "not revenge." Diane returned the $25,000 through a cashier's check with no note attached. Richard sold his boat and timeshare to begin repayments. He and Brenda moved into a smaller house outside Knoxville. They haven't spoken to me since the hearing. Hazel's house looks different now. The porch railing is fixed. The gutters are new. The thermostat stays at 72. The fridge is full. Every Friday she goes to Cracker Barrel again with her church friends while Loretta brings over casseroles on Sundays. And Earl's old leather suitcase still sits in the hallway closet. Only now, inside it are 2 real plane tickets to Paris. One for Hazel. One for me. Last Saturday she stood in the kitchen making cornbread in Earl's old cast iron skillet and smiled while she mixed the batter. "I want to see the Eiffel Tower at night," she told me. "Your grandpa always said it looks like it's breathing." People tell me I was brave for staying behind at that airport. I don't think staying was brave. I think leaving would have been easier. Sometimes love is not loud. Sometimes it's not dramatic. Sometimes it's just one torn boarding pass, one old cast iron skillet, and the decision to stay when everyone else walks away.